Greetings and welcome to Nami Greater Houston's Now You Know radio show on the amazing 102.5, powered by Bread of Life, Inc. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And in the Greater Houston area, this awesome organization has been supporting families and people living with mental illness since 1988. And we do this in a number of different ways, through workshops, through peer support groups, through family support groups, through resource sharing, just to name a few options. And for more information, please go to namigreaterhouston.org. And also you can find us on all the popular social media outlets at Nami Greater Houston. This week, I am very thrilled to introduce to you and to welcome to Houston, Terrence Stewart. Hi, Terrence. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm good. Thanks for asking. Thank you. Really glad to be here.
Good. How are you enjoying June in Houston so far?
It's different. It's different. Oh man, I was just like humidity out here. Yeah. Not used to it unless I'm on vacation. I'm in the Caribbean somewhere, but okay. I love it out here. I love the people. It's been really great. The weather is something to get used to, though. The weather is for sure something to get used to.
Yeah, you have to think cool thoughts. You have to, and this is why I always tell people, this is why in Houston, this is why we speak with a drawl. This is why we talk slow. This is why we walk slow, because it's too hot. It's too hot to do anything else.
That's right.
But speaking of that, do you mind if I share a little bit about your background with our audience, and then you can fill in anything that I may have missed?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so Terrence Stewart is a licensed clinical social worker. He has his master's in social work from Cal State Northridge. Beautiful campus. If you're ever in the area, you just got to see those palm trees lining the street on that campus. But he has more than 10 years of experience in mental health, and he has worked in schools and juvenile placements and reintegration programs. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Terrence is a Black male therapist, which is worth its weight in an hour's worth of time as well. I know I have a lot of questions about Black men's mental health that we're going to get into. And he really likes to focus on breaking generational issues and healing generational trauma, which I'm sure we're going to get into in the hour as well. And you should also know that Terrence has a certification in cognitive behavioral therapy, really focusing on helping people to self-heal from depression and anxiety and trauma. And so before we really get into our conversation, what I like to do, Terrence, every week is to introduce the audience to some kind of somatic practice. And so for this week, I want to introduce us to the practice of the self-hug. The self-hug, self-containment is valuable for a lot of different, modalities. But really all you want to do is, per usual, is just sit comfortably wherever you are. And on your inhale deeply and stretch your arms as far as they will go out. Stretch out on your inhale. And then on your exhale, bring them around, cross them around your body. Exhale everything that is not peace, love, whatever it is that you need. On your inhale again, open your arms wide. And on the exhale, cross in the opposite direction. And exhale. And just squeeze, hug yourself like you would hug a baby, like you would hug a loved one, like you would hug someone you love who may have had a hard day or may be dealing with anxiety, right? Thinking thoughts that have thoughts. Just love on yourself. Breathe in and out however you need to. And when you're ready, just let it all go. My mother, my first yoga teacher, she would always tell me that, Terrence. She would always say, give yourself a hug for me. Whenever we were not together, she would give yourself a hug for me. When I was away at school, she would remind me to do that. And now that she's no longer with us in the earthly realm, I do. I I'm so grateful that she planted that in me.
Amazing. Yeah. That felt good too. That felt real good. Yeah. Now self-love is super important. Like sometimes like these affirmations, but then like, you tell yourself you love yourself in the mirror, but like it's actually like, how you show other people love. Like, when you greet somebody, you hug them. So it's good to hug yourself once in a while. For sure.
That's great.
100%.
That's great. So it's like affirmations in action almost.
100%.
Say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that resonated with you. It tends to resonate with a lot of people. And I think when we think about generational trauma that we're going to get around to talking about, we sometimes forget that we have passed along generational healing as well.
Right. And I feel like, it's hard to pass on when you're never taught that either, like if you're not taught like how to love yourself or how to, give yourself affirmations, how to show yourself love, because it's really like, how you treat yourself is how other people are going to treat you and vice versa. Right. So that's super important. Like, we can get into that for sure. Like the self-love part and how we miss that, throughout the generations for sure.
Right. And I'm wondering also if there's a space as we think about coming up, as we think about the messages that we give Black boys about how to deal with uncomfortable issues and how to deal with uncomfortable feelings. Do you have recommendations for adults who are loving Black boys, who have Black boys in our lives? How, like, is the self-hug a practice, that one little thing that we could all possibly do?
Absolutely. I think children are sponges, children are sponges. So they're going to really reflect how you treat yourself and vice versa, so I think the best practice to show like young Black boys, anybody who's raising Black boys that will eventually be Black men, is for you to set that example of how to do that, because sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just doing what my parental figure is showing me essentially, so one of the things like when it comes to like self-love for young Black boys is, we have to role model that. We can't like be hypocritical and say like, hey, this is how you love yourself. You need to do this, do X, Y, and Z, and we're not doing it for ourselves, because they're really just going to do exactly what we do. So that's probably the one of the ways we can start to, integrate like showing Black boys how, self-love and, how they can make positive improvements to their mental health as well too, is by actually setting the example too.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so very much for that. And just, and we're going to, of course, continue, because I'm really interested to know about your trajectory and how your experience with working with young boys in residential settings has influenced your decisions and your desire to become a licensed clinical social worker. And I think what we're now about to do is to get into the groove a little bit of what makes Terrence Stewart by listening to a walk-up song by one of your favorite artists, I understand, Nipsey Hussle.
The late and great.
Yes. So especially, thinking about him, thinking about Father's Day, thinking about everything. We're going to get into that and get into your personal groove, and then we'll be back, right, with more Black men's mental health. Eric at the break told us that we have friends who are logged in watching us live. So hello, friends. We love you, friends. It's June. Let me tell each and every one of you, happy Pride for everyone who celebrates. Happy Father's Day for everyone who celebrates. Happy Juneteenth for everyone who celebrates. And happy Gemini season for everyone who celebrates. We have to take time to celebrate.
Absolutely. You have to take time to celebrate. That's super essential. And shouting out to, June is a heavy month. So in summertime too, love it. We gotta love June. Gotta love it.
And it's also Men's Mental Health Month, which makes our conversation so very timely.
100%.
And we talked about also at the break, Terrence, of course, he does this for real. So we had maybe a 45-second therapy session, but I shared with Terrence that I'm feeling the show. Right. But I am also a human being having a show experience. Right. And today is the anniversary of my father's passing. So Moju by Daddy, wherever you are, you are definitely in my heart. And so it's so very timely and it just feel so very purposeful to talk about men's mental health with you, Terrence, today, because part of the share that I openly share with a lot of people is that I will always believe that the impacts of the stress, the stressors of life made conditions possible to set up metastatic cancer in my daddy's body. Absolutely. I will always let he did work that he loved. He was an educator. He was awesome at it. And I really do believe the stress took a toll, which is part of why I'm such a big mind body person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But our men, period, tend to suffer in silence, but particularly our Black men.
100%. And my condolences again, first of all. That's you know, as you're going through your process, and like that's real, you know. I will say, like, you know, Black men, we do suffer in silence. That's 100% accurate, because, you know, a lot of the stuff that we inherit is really supposed to be normal. You know, we talk about, like, you know, traumas that I have this term, it's called like unnecessary normals, right? So unnecessary normals are usually like, you think about like police brutality. I'm from California, so it's more like gang violence, you know, like certain hats you can't wear. I was out and about one day, and they was like, why are you dressed like that? And I was like, well, I'm so used to being in LA, I'm just wearing neutral colors, you know? So there's a lot you have to wear out here, like, you know, Houston Astros, that's like a whole hood in LA. So it's like, you know, so I'm already conditioned, like, you know, when I was, and then another thing I had to kind of get used to even moving out here was, you know, the unnecessary normals, the trauma, the things I experienced was, you know, a lot of Black men being together and nothing's popping off. Like, everybody's getting along, you know, and that's something I get used to. But going back to, like, you know, that's an example of like the trauma, but going back to stress, like, yeah, a lot of us do suffer in silence, because, you know, it's normal for us to be stressed out. It's normal for us to have high blood pressure, not necessarily always because of what we eat, but like what we internally consume, you know. Internal consumption is really big. And that's why you're talking about the mind, body, and soul is, you know, it's not always about like our diet, but like, what are your thoughts, you know, what are you consuming as far as like, how are you processing that, you know, because all that stuff, you know, we were talking about the book, The Body Keeps Score, you know, all that stuff internalizes in you and will eventually, you know, lead to physical symptoms.
Absolutely.
You know? So yeah, I 100% agree. And, you know, a lot of us don't know how to, you know, relieve our stress because it's so normalized.
Unnecessary normals. That is going to stick with me. And just the way, so I'm even just thinking about just, you know, how we store cortisol and just are always on edge. Like I could not imagine your lived human experience being like, okay, there are a group of people who look like me and have my same gender experience, and violence could erupt because we're all together.
Absolutely.
And so what does that do even for how you carry that stress in your body as you go along? It you know, so with our Black men, with these unnecessary normals, right, of it, we can call it what it is, police brutality, and watching basically murders on television, and just what that does without even realizing the implications of that. What stops our Black men from seeking mental health support? What are some barriers?
Well, one, it's not, you know, we talk about unnecessary normals. Now let's talk about like what should be normal, is us seeking help, you know? So it's not normal for Black men to go to therapy when they're feeling stressed out or feeling overwhelmed, you know? And there's a lot of barriers with that. I wouldn't say it's not Black men's fault that we don't seek help. It's a systemic issue, you know? We have historically been pretty much castricized through the medical field, you know, like we've been through the ringer, like even going back to, you know, the Tuskegee experiment, you know, and the study with syphilis. And, you know, that in itself is a whole setup of like, okay, do we trust medical professionals? You know, do we trust people that we are supposed to go to when we're supposed to get help? You know, so it's a whole mentality of, you know, Black men actually trusting, you know, the medical field and knowing that mental health is a medical service as well too.
Yes.
Right.
Mental health is health.
Absolutely. 100%. So there's a whole barrier with that. Then also access to care, you know, so let's talk about not even mental health, but physical health, and how they both coexist, and how you actually may need medical insurance to pay for all these things, right? A lot of folks may not have medical insurance or proper medical insurance, or if you're, getting medical insurance from the government, there's a whole, ringer you have to go through to get a therapist. And, what does that do to people who really need the help, right? It turns them off to actually go through with the help. So there's a whole different side of Black men seeking mental health as opposed to anybody else, because there's so many different stigmas around it that we have to navigate because of the people that we are, and the systems that we live in.
Yeah, right, right. And just so much on your shoulders, so much on your so those are barriers, but what are some options? Like what?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some maybe other opportunities that we have that we can encourage the Black men we love to seek out?
Absolutely. So I will say, historically, there hasn't been an issue. Fast forward to 2023, there are ways to seek help now. Is being more focused, or there's a more hyper focus on Black men trying to seek therapy and Black men actually getting linked to therapists. So there's, shout out to, there's a platform called Express Yourself Black Men. That's a good platform. Black Men Heal, that's also a good platform as well. It really comes down to like, I always tell people when they're trying to find a therapist, it's more particularly even like a Black male therapist, it's like, really, how bad do you want to, do you want that therapist? Because you think about it, 4.5% of therapists are Black, just not even Black men, just out of all 4.5% are Black therapists. So you think about the other 90, trying to do the math, 96.5%,
right? Yeah.
Of the other side of the coin is not Black, and then even with that, for every Black male therapist, there's 15 Black women therapists. So now we're talking about a percentage of a percentage. So it's really hard to try to find, a Black male therapist in general. So it's hard, but they're out there, like myself, we're out there. You just really have to be intentional about how bad you want to seek that help.
Yeah, about finding you all. Well, so we'll come back to that, and we'll talk more about resources and options. For those of you who are online, do not leave us. We will be right back after What a Man by my girls, Salt and Pepper. We'll be right back. All right. Thank you for staying with us for Nami Greater Houston's Now You Know radio show on the amazing 102.5, powered by Bread of Life, Inc. I am your host this week, LaVondia Menephee, extending my conversation with the terrific Terrence Stewart, LCSW. Thank you for hanging with me this whole hour to devote to
pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm loving this conversation.
Me too. So before we left, we were talking about barriers to mental health, and then we started talking about the other side of the coin, which is making mental health more accessible and maybe even feel more acceptable to Black men. So what are some informal opportunities for support that Black men can seek out for mental health?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thinking about, well, first of all, if you are in therapy, it's only, an hour out of your whole week, right? So there's things that you will have to do regardless, throughout your week, just to, kind of keep your mental health in a positive state of mind, right? So you can have a therapeutic process without going to therapy, right? So some of the things like, playing sports, like if you're in a basketball league, I know that's one thing I used to do was like, playing ball, going to the gym, making sure, you have some type of physical exertion. Also too, like, look good, feel good, going to the barbershop, making sure you get your haircuts and all that stuff. For Black men, going out, socializing, also having a good group of friends, trying to find like-minded individuals to help you, through your healing process. Because again, therapy, is only a short amount of time out of your whole week. So there's other things you have to do in order to help yourself get into a positive state of mind, so that, social support, physical exertion, and, making sure that you look good so you can feel good as well too.
I love that. Look good, feel good.
Yeah.
And you know what came to mind for me is just the importance of the barbershop for our men. Like I get an inkling. So my husband he has a wonderful relationship with his barber. Like his barber feels like extended family.
Okay.
He like comes home with all kinds of things. Like it seems like such a rich environment to share wisdom. One hope. And I know that there are places where this kind of work is going forward, where barbers are being trained to be more intentional about being informal mental health beacons in the community.
Yeah.
Right?
So I always tell people, and I spoke about this, frequently and recently, that like your barber can't be your therapist, right? But there are therapeutic processes such as like going to your barber and like, look good, feel good, talking with your barber, that builds a sense of community. There are a lot of barbers and also like, people in the church that are looking to, get mental health certifications. Like my uncle, for example, he's been a pastor for like 25, maybe 30 years or so. Like he is a certified counselor now, so he does work in the church, but he also does mental health services and also life coaching and things of that nature, wrote books and all type of stuff like that. So there are, I always say like, if you're a barber or if you're in the church and, because those are two places or, we're talking about Black men, but also with Black women, like the hair salon, like if you're in that type of profession, it would probably be a good idea to take some courses or learn about how you can be an advocate for mental health because a lot of times people aren't going to go to the office, the medical office, go through their primary care physician to get a therapist, understanding like that that's not going to be you're not going to be their therapist because like you play another stake in their life. But, it can be helpful for you to be a mental health advocate in those spaces, like, and go to therapy yourself because there are benefits of going to therapy.
Yeah, because once people unload, then you have to have somewhere to unload that, right? Because as you said, we're sponges, right? We are sponges. Children 100%. Are sponges, but we're just bigger, taller, older children. So and what about support groups?
Support groups, yeah. So I would say social media is a beast. Like I would say like it is probably the best way you can find a support system.
Okay.
If you go to hashtag Black Men Therapy, if you go to hashtag, go through hashtags, go through like TikTok. There's a lot of people out there that are advocating for mental health, services for Black men. I know myself, we're having a series coming up in the next couple of months as well too. Okay. So if you guys are interested,
we are
on my platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube is Terrence the Therapist. So TERRENCE, not ANCE. So TERRENCE, the therapist. So you guys check out. If you guys have any questions, DM me. Feel free to reach out. I can most definitely point you in the right direction. Even moving out here in Houston, I've been able to connect with some folks. So, if you guys do have any questions, if you're listening, most definitely feel free to reach out. And I'll for sure do my best to point you in the right direction.
Love that. So the audience can find you at Terrence the Therapist. On the major, most popular social media platforms.
Absolutely.
So that's something to keep in mind. And who knows, like we may be on the precipice of, I'm really stuck on that look good, feel good. Maybe because my nephew is a barber, my baby is a barber. And so, I'm thinking like, maybe I should call Kwame and tell him to kind of think about, to watch this conversation and to think about that, right?
100%.
Going forward. And so I'm holding my heart and thinking about my nephew and just, and of course thinking about my grandnephew and thinking about Black boys and what can we do to make sure that we are bringing up a generation of Black boys who have that self-love and self-acceptance. What are just some easy things that we can do to just shift how we even relate to our boys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one, understanding the climate that we are in, as far as like as a Black community, and understanding that, Black boys, are going to become Black men. Right. So I think one thing, just having conversations and checking in, like creating a dialogue, teaching your Black boy who will become a Black man how to communicate their emotions, right? Because a lot of times, you know, even myself, I get caught up like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. Like, good's not a feeling,
right?
You know, I know it's you know, we talk about look good, feel good, but like when we come down to like what is the emotion behind that? You know, okay, what do you mean by good? Like, what happened at school? You know, have you know daily conversations after school. Spend about it doesn't. I feel like people think it's like this whole thing where you have to like, okay, I need to get my son into a workshop, or I need to like have him do X, Y, and Z. It's like you can have 15-minute conversations on a daily basis. You know, check in every day, see how they're doing, see what's going on at school. You know, a lot of times I know it's easier for like, you know, Black young boys to be caught up in the video games and like stuff like that. You know, it's like easy. I'll just let them play the game. But like, you know, tapping in, like really asking them some real questions, because at some point in time, they're going to need to know how to communicate their emotions. And if they don't know how to do that, then their emotional intelligence will be shot. And, you know, there's been studies now that, you know, emotional intelligence is going to be a lot more important than intellectual. You know,
tell me what does that mean? Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence that's a great question, because emotional intelligence is just really your caliber of understanding your emotions, and you know that comes in the form of, you know, how you behave, how you feel, your perception, your communication with other people. So a lot of emotional intelligence has to do with your caliber of understanding your emotions. It's just like, you know, if you're learning math, you're like, okay, 2 + 2 is 4, or 2 × 2 is 4. Or like, you know, when your certain emotions come up, you know, what's going to be the answer, and how do you answer to those emotions that's being taught to you, you know, or
that's really
receiving,
good.
You know, just as, again,
that's
like a
really
math problem, it's like, I know the answer to 2 + 2, but what's the answer to me being sad? What's the answer to me being depressed? Like, how do I cope with that? So that's what emotional intelligence really is.
Thank you for explaining that. And what are some things that we can do? I remember when I was an elementary school counselor, we had like these little bingo cards where we could like just kind of put together responses. And one of the ones that my little boys really loved to do, who were dealing with anger, was push a wall. Just, you know, when you just want to just explode on something, just push a wall until you release it, right? And so, Terrence, thank you for giving us all of those resources 100%. And for letting us know how to find you.
Absolutely.
And so for those of you who are tuned in online, you have hashtags, you have social media feeds, you have lots of different things. We will be back to wrap up our conversation, but again, please stay with us. If you're on with us online, please stay with us. We're about to hear Luther talk about dancing with his father, because I'm just thinking about my own daddy. I'm just being selfish right now. So we'll be back here to continue our conversation. Nami Greater Houston's Now You Know radio show on the Amazing 102.5. See you in a minute. Welcome back to Nami Greater Houston's Now You Know radio show on the Amazing 102.5, powered by Bread of Life, Inc. Thank you for still staying with us online, friends. Thank you for rocking with us. And for those of you who are watching after the fact, thank you for staying with us on the recording. And drop a line for us in the comments. Let us know that you've been here, right? So like, share, repost, please do all of those things. And I am, again, LaVondia Menephee here with Terrence Stewart, LCSW. And Terrence, thank you for all of the gems that you have given us. And thank you for being such an awesome guest, and for like really holding space for me.
Oh, no, thank all you. Good. Absolutely.
Thank you. Do you have any final words as we wrap up our time together?
I do. For all the Black men out there, don't wait till it's too late to seek help. About 80% of the utilization for mental health services for Black men are through emergency services. And a lot of times it may be too late. So we want to be proactive. We want to be active, and we want to get the healing that we deserve. Like, we do deserve to heal. Like, there's no reason why we should not heal. So make sure you guys get the help that you guys deserve.
Thank you for that. I love that. Just thinking about Black men deserving mental health and spiritual healing. I think we can also, we can lump those two together, right, in the context of this conversation.
Absolutely.
I really do love that, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your time.
100%.
So I like to either start with a story or wrap up with a story. Do you have time to hear it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So long time ago, once upon a time, there were two monks who were walking around traveling, and they came to a village, and there was a woman who was seated in a sedan chair, you know, those chairs that kind of got carried through, right, the streets and everything. So she was in her sedan chair and with servants all around her. Well, it had stormed, and so there were puddles of water everywhere. So as they were walking and making their way, they saw the whole scene, and they saw her yelling at the servants who, you know, their hands were full because they were carrying all of her stuff. Well, she wanted to get out of the sedan chair, but she couldn't because of the puddles. So, you know, of course, she didn't want to ruin her fine clothes and everything, and the servants couldn't help her. So, and, you know, she was just acting so rude and off. So the young monk saw her and just kind of like scoffed and kept walking like, okay, lady, that's your business. You know, you get what you got. The older monk stopped, helped her out of the sedan chair, and carried her across the puddles. You would think she would have been grateful, right? She wasn't.
Oh, wow.
She didn't even say thank you.
Wow.
She just like jerked away from him and went on, like, right?
Right. Horrible.
So the monks kept walking. They continued their journey, but the younger monk like found that more and more he had this resentment and like all of these complicated feelings rising up. And so finally he told the older monk, you know, I'm feeling some kind of way about you and about this situation because you helped that woman and she didn't even say thank you. And you don't seem bothered by it. How can that be? And the older monk took it in and he told the younger monk, I put that woman down hours ago, but you're still carrying her.
Wow. That's a bar. That's a bar. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perception is key.
And I feel like I picked that one, Terrence, because I feel like that's the story of men's mental health in my mind. We have a lot of men who carry a lot of people, period. But of course, we're talking about men's mental health and unnecessary normals, right? The unnecessary normal is to carry what should have been sat down long ago, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us tools and strategies to not be, for our men to be the older monk in the scenario versus the younger one.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. I'll email that to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that.
Absolutely. I didn't write it.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I didn't write it. Yeah. I didn't write it. And so to our online audience and our audience listening in the car on 102.5 FM, thank you so very much for giving us the gift of your time and investing your energy in this conversation today. And as always, bless the earth beneath your feet. Bless the waters and the food you eat. Bless every ending before you start. And above all, bless your own heart. Thank you all very much. I'm LaVondia Menephee here with Terrence Stewart on behalf, again, of my executive director, Angelina Brown Hudson, and the Nami Greater Houston community. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.